Lady. Okay, we got the thumbs up. So welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'm Alan Priester, and I'm the chairman of the Planning Committee and also your host for tonight's presentation. Welcome to the Planning Committee's Town Hall on Capital Projects and the 5-year plan. And it's good to see you all this evening. Thank you, members of the board, for showing up. I see some members from the LOA staff, so thank you very much for showing. But especially a big thank you for you LOA members, both the ones that are here in person, as well as the ones that are on Zoom, that are here virtually. For you that are here physically, we actually have some physical handouts, which I think most of you gotten by the door. And for you those that are on virtually here on Zoom, I have some virtual handouts. If you go to the LOA.org website, you'll see right at the very, kind of at the top, the town hall link. Click on that link and the page you'll take to, there's a couple of links there for the agenda and the presentation as well. So we want, make sure everyone has something to follow along and take notes on. I want to give a big thank you to the Community Affairs Department and the Communication Member Engagement Departments for making this possible. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to pull this off. And a really big thank you to Alex Barch and Lori Carter. They're back there making the magic happen with all the electronics and doing their best to make me look and sound good up here. But we do appreciate you giving up your evening for us. For those of you that may not know what the Planning Committee is or does, it is our job to advise the board on, capital expenditures and capital projects. So what's the big deal about capital? Well, a capital represents an investment in the infrastructure and future of our community to both maintain our amenities and the attractiveness of our community. And hopefully that helps maintain our property values as well. Second of all, the capital expenditures make up somewhere between a quarter to a third of our budget. And therefore, that impacts our assessments as well, since we're, going to be contributing to that. So this is why we take this time, once a year at this time, to report to you what's being considered for the 5-year plan, and to solicit your feedback. Let me see. Right now, let me introduce our current planning committee. Again, I'm Alan Priester. I am the chair. Next to me here is Jim Klein, who is the vice chair. Down at the end, we have Steve Kane, who is the secretary. We have Kathleen Dorn and Chris Colley, Terry Vickery, and Scott Dernan at the end. I have 2 members that are absent today, Tom Baylor and Dick Unser. And then we are honored to have 2 very knowledgeable advisors advise our committee with Tom Sheridan and Leighton Cumming. Now then, I will apologize to you all in advance that this presentation may seem like death by PowerPoint. But we have an awful lot of information to share with you. There will be places where we stop and take questions. So I ask that you hold any questions until we get to those spots, and I'll make sure you know what those spots are. So if you'll silence your cell phones so we won't be interrupted, we'll get started with the presentation. Next slide, Alex. Okie dokie. All right, why are we here tonight? Well, as the slide says, this is both to inform you as well as to solicit your feedback. We're going to be giving you a presentation on 3 areas of capital expenditures. One is the proposed new asset and improvement projects, which have been requested by you, the members, both in your capacity as members, as well as committee members, as well as the LOA staff have requested some projects there. We're going to talk about the lake and stormwater management capital projects and what the planning is for those. And also then the repair and replacement projects, the major ones that are over $100,000. Now, at the end of each of those, there'll be a chance for you to ask questions. So we ask that you please hold those questions until then. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, in my six years on the planning committee, I look back and I find that I've never really uh, given a definition on what a capital expenditure is. So I figured I would take one slide here to at least let you know at least what our definition of a capital expenditure is. That this is a one-time expenditure to either purchase, build, significantly improve, or significantly repair any asset that is owned by our association. These assets may be physical, they may be depreciable, and generally they're always documented in our reserve study. A capital expenditure is something greater than $3,500. Anything under $3,500 is considered a minor project and is covered under operational funds. Our lake management and stormwater management projects are indeed capital projects. Most of them are over $3,500. And in truth, our lakes, our streams, and our land are all physical assets that are owned by the association that need to be maintained. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, for those of you who have sat through this before, you've seen the same slide, but it's always worth repeating that the expenditure side of the LOA budget is two primary categories, operations and capital. The operations side is overseen by the Finance Committee, and this is all of the expenses needed to run the LOA machine. This is salaries and benefits and operating expenses, gasoline for the trucks, cost of goods sold, materials that are used in repairs, and also the paying of our subcontractors, such as IGM and our new landscaping contractor. When it comes to capital, this is under the auspices of your planning committee up here, and there's two main buckets for that. One is repair and replacement, and this is money that's set aside or spent for planned repairs or the replacement of existing assets that correspond with the previous slide about what an asset is. And then the new asset and improvement is discretionary spending. These are generally nice to have, though some of them are, could be considered needs. But this is money that's spent for expenditures after the after repair and replacement. So it comes in second place. Next slide, please, Alex. So with that, we're going to jump into the proposed new asset and improvement projects. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, we do need to talk a little bit about what the new asset and improvement reserve fund is. I think we have six reserve funds. One of these is the NA&I, and this is a pot of money that's quartered off to where that is set aside strictly for new asset and improvement projects that are approved by the board. That once the board approves it, in year one of the 5-year capital plan, this money is put into that fund, and it stays in that fund until the project is either complete or the board decides that the project is to be canceled or otherwise repurposed. Next slide, please, ma'am. All right. We actually have a documented policy and procedure, for what we're doing tonight as far as the new asset and improvement. This policy was approved by the board in June of last year. That this documents and establishes the process that we go through year after year after year in looking at these new asset and improvement, and defines the life cycle for for doing that. It does establish the rules for handling the requests, that if the request is approved by the board for year one, then that project is going to be done, period, paragraph. There's nothing else to be done. If the project is put into year 2 through 5, that means it's provisionally approved and is put into the 5-year plan for planning purposes. That the following year, if need be, Section 2 of the request form, which contains the detailed cost estimates, if necessary, should be updated, and then we'll go through the reconsideration of those projects again. If a request is not provisionally approved or not approved, then it will not appear in the 5-year plan other than that honorable mention, and that request would need to be resubmitted the following year if it's felt strong enough that you really need to do that. And we highly recommend aligning yourself with a committee that for instance, if your request has to do with a pool, then you can align yourself with the community activities committee to get their help and sponsorship for the next go around. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, there were 5 projects that were approved in year 1, for the current 5-year plan, and these are the 5. There's 2 of them that have been completed, and this totals up to the $63,000 that was set aside and put into the NA&I reserve fund, for this year. And the other 3 are either to be started or in process. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, this one. I received 24 requests for project. And for my first time in the 6 years I've been on this committee, I actually received 2 requests from 2 different sources for the same project. So we're considering 23 projects. If you're interested, the project that received those 2 requests were the privacy fencing around the maintenance yard there behind the ECC building. But again, we have a summary slide for each one of these that we'll go through to give you a little better idea of what was being requested. But I will say, first of all, thank you to the requesters, the people that took the time and effort to fill out that form, and that form is a pain in the tush. I recognize that, but in the 6 years, it never ceases to amaze me, the creativity, the ingenuity, and the care that these people have for our community to take the time to expose a need and make a request that this need be filled. All of these ideas are good ideas. There is no such thing as a bad idea. There are, however, ideas that are more suitable or more appropriate at this point in time in our community than others. And that's what this committee does when we go through and do our evaluations and recommendations of these projects. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, this first slide, again, this exposes a need. A member has submitted this project request for a traffic light at Flat Run Road and Back Gate. I can sympathize with this one because there have been many times as I've come very close to getting run over, either leaving or trying to come in with a community with a car speeding around the blind curve or coming through the S curves from the other way. And this is the need that was being expressed by this member. The challenge, I should say, with this project is because it's Flat Run Road is a public road, and because it's off of Loa property, this is not really a capital project appropriate for us. However, this need, I think, is being made known to the External Affairs Committee, and hopefully we can work through them and through our Orange County Board of Supervisors representative to maybe get this on the VDOT's project list coming up. Next slide, please, ma'am. Now, this is a very ingenious, I think, project that has been requested. This is for to repurpose the campground into a tiny house community. Now, we may chuckle just a little bit, but if you stop and think, this member seems to believe that our campground is underutilized, and that if it was subdivided into lots, that would increase our revenue because there would be, that many more lots into the revenue pool, contributing, to our assessments. It would provide more people coming in, to take advantage of our amenities. The challenge with this particular project, however, this request, is that it will require a successful referendum because the campground is a required amenity with our governing documents, we'd have to have a successful referendum to change that, and also to change the minimum square, footage requirements for houses. But again, this is one of those that is very entertaining from where I sit to review these. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, another member has submitted a request, and this member is very, very proud of our community. This member seems to believe that we should adopt a tagline and put up signage for the proclaiming ourselves as a recreational community, as kind of seen in the picture there on the slide. The challenge with this particular one is the cost is below the $3,500 threshold for a capital project, and we would probably need some VDOT permission if we were to propose putting blue and white signs that propose this. So this is a project that we'll probably leave with communications and member engagement as a possibility of including with the marketing campaign that they're undergoing for our community. Next slide, please, ma'am. Now, this is another request that came in from a club here at LOA, the Happy Tails Dog Club, that they would like to have a water station installed at the Happy Tails Dog Park, so that both the four-legged as well as the two-legged folks that come in to enjoy that park, could have water and not have to bring their own. The advantages to this is that not only would there be potable water, to drink by the animals as well as the humans, but there would be water available to water the grass in that dog park, and also have water available for maintenance to clean the mail station that is nearby. The challenge with this one, it's between $10,000 and $20,000, and that range depends on whether RSA would reallocate one of the requested feeds that's not being utilized for some other lots that we owned. Though the Happy Tails in their submission did suggest that they would be open to doing some cost sharing with us that needs to be pursued. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, again, another ingenious submission from a member who I have to believe has seen the success of the electronic sign that the Fire and Rescue has put up. But this member wants us to get one that's trailer mounted, so that the sign, with its appropriate message that needs to be communicated to our members, can be placed wherever it's needed. Could be at the front gate for an important message, at the back gate, could be put on top of the dam to warn people about the speed limit, or in the lower level of the parking of the clubhouse parking lot, for other messages, similar to during the water crisis that Fire and Rescue did for us. The challenge with this one again is the cost. $17,000 is the cost for a monochromatic sign that's pictured here, or the price goes up to $28,000 for a color signs that's trailer mounted, similar to the what's fixed mounted for the Fire and Rescue. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, this one came from the LOA staff with, I believe, some help from the Garden Club. They want us to invest in a professional landscaping of the front gate after the improvement project is complete there at the front gate. Which would basically take out, all of the existing plants and professionally landscape, so it again would be, very attractive and professionally done. The challenge for this one, $150,000. Next slide, please, ma'am. All righty. One of the board goals is to try and, as far as the overarching goals, is to provide automation to improve the efficiency of our operations. So this request came in from the from the LOA staff for the ECC regulation management software. This is a software package that would allow applicants, that are putting in an application for tree removal or for upgrades, to their house or building house to actually do this online. This would help modernize what's going on in ECC by having one package do the job that is done either by hand or by 5 other software packages as they go through the both the tracking of the work orders as well as the ECC violations. Again, the challenge here is going to be the cost. Right now, the package they're looking at is a little shy of $23,000 per year on a lease. Next slide, please, ma'am. All right, how many of you have been into the fitness center late in the afternoon and the sun comes blinding in, reflected off the lake, and it gets pretty warm in there? This is a request, again, by the LOA staff and the fitness committee for putting in solar shades in the fitness center. That these would be automated shades that would go up and down with how the sun is coming in. With the advantages to here is not only would it help cool things down, but it also would help reduce some of the load on the HVAC system. So there is a little bit of return on our investment from a cost saving standpoint. Let me see, the price tag on this one is $8,500, though I did get a revised estimate that it's really going to be closer to $13,000 for this particular request. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, another request has come in from a LOA staff requesting that we purchase 2 small SUVs to add to the vehicle fleet. The reasoning behind this is the ECC, for example, has the director and 2 inspectors, but only 1 vehicle. So either that vehicle has to be shared or a private owned vehicle is used. And the custodial staff, there's 4 of them and 3 vehicles that when they scatter out to the different buildings that they are to take care of, again, it's either ride sharing or privately owned vehicle used. And with a smaller, more fuel efficient vehicle, when the staff goes out for a meetings, such as our senior staff will do to go to, statewide meetings and what have you. This would be a cost savings over either the larger vehicles taken or the cost savings from the private owned vehicle reimbursement that they would use. Right now, the cost is, $35,000 each, or a one-time special deal of $70,000 for the 2 of them. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay. Okay. You're probably tired of me droning on here, so I'm going to move the mic over to Mr. Steve Kane, who is going to talk about the next 4 projects involving fairways and community activities. So, Steve, take it away.
Thanks. As many of you are probably aware, earlier this year we had some menu modifications at Fairways, particularly the discontinuing of all-day breakfast. This particular request was developed by the Fairways Committee and the Fairways staff to make some modifications to the kitchen, get some additional equipment to restore many of the items that were removed from the menu earlier in the year. That's the primary focus here. This request was actually in here for the 2025 year as a larger kitchen expansion that was a result of the Wood Center Ad Hoc Committee. The Fairways Committee sort of broke it apart into smaller, less expensive pieces with further pushing some of them out into the next year. But the primary focus here is restoring the menu items, particularly all-day breakfast, to Fairways as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. This is just a slight expansion onto the back end of fairways. It is projected for 2026. It is contingent upon the success of fairways based on the prior request. So it's basically going to expand the kitchen, bump it out to the current roof line, and bring in some equipment, ovens and heating elements, heating ovens to relieve some of the pressure of moving things back and forth from the clubhouse to fairways when they're holding large events at the golf course. Again, this is projected to be in the 2026 time period. Next slide, please. This first one, both of these are actually for basketball courts. This is the Sweetbriar Court. The Pools and Community Activities Committee has requested that the current basketball court at Sweetbriar Park be extended into a full court, and it also be lighted. There were some issues with this, and management has sort of done an assessment of expanding the court and did not feel comfortable in its arrangement and what they had to remove and what they had to take out to actually expand the court. So this one is some degree going to be put off and reassessed. Next slide, please. This is for the clubhouse basketball courts. They've requested lighting for the courts. This court does get used a lot. I know there have been some concerns raised about the noise level and lights being on all day, all evening long by accident. There are timers that are planned to put on this, and it should be managed correctly. You know, getting things put off at a reasonable time in the evening so it doesn't disturb a lot of the people in that cove. And the next slide goes to.
All right, thank you,
Oh.
Steve. This next slide, the next two slides are going to be presented by Chris Colley, Mr. Golf, who's going to talk about these two golf-related project requests.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thanks for your leadership for these 6 years. This is my first year on the planning committee, so I admire your willingness to stay with us so long. This is being billed as a golf committee kind of a request, but it's really a request for the entire community because it's a water fountain that would be available for those people who pass Fairways restaurants, who are on walks with their dogs. So it's not just a golf community. Last year we had 5 water fountains on the golf course, two of which were the old-fashioned water fountains, cooled, and the other 3 were kegs that were filled daily by IGM. The management worked out a deal with IGM that if IGM would pay for one of the fountains, Loa would pay for the other, and IGM did not then have to fill up any water kegs. That now leaves us with just 2 fountains on the golf course. The deal probably should have been worked out a little bit differently, I think, in my opinion. But in any event, this request has come in to put a water fountain right outside the Fairways restaurant. It's a little bit under the threshold of a capital project. It's only a $2,500 cost, but it would be used by the entire community. Next slide. This is a proposal that's been made several times. The differentiation of this proposal from other proposals before you is that this one actually makes money. Our estimations is that it will net $145,000 over a 5-year period. It's based on several factors, one of which is that more people play golf on non-grass golf courses than play golf on green grass golf courses, meaning more people play on simulators than they do on golf courses. The simulator golfers are 5 to 6 times more likely to join a regular green grass golf course. So it's a primary line to golf course memberships. The initial proposal called for a shed cost of $35,000. That would be part of the $55,000 indicated here. Our research has indicated you can buy an Amish shed for $12,000. So if you take that into consideration, the $12,000 Amish shed, then you can truly make $145,000 over a 5-year period. Next slide.
All righty, thank you, Chris. These next 4 projects are security-related projects, and I'm going to ask Kathleen Dorn to please present them.
Can everybody hear me? I have a soft voice. Okay. There's been a lot of chatter both online, at the mailbox, at the board about various security issues and trying to tighten up security because we've had quite a bit of vandalism in various areas. One of the types of solutions that has been proposed is fencing, and the next 3 slides I'm going to go over has to do with fencing of various sorts. The first one is maintenance yard privacy fencing. The main complaint here is really more that it's an eyesore. You know, people have to look at various types of maintenance equipment and gravel and mulch and whatever that it's an eyesore, and they feel that the adjacent properties are losing value because of it. The maintenance yard in the Woods Center, it's substantially open to the streets of Green Street, Birdie Road, and Fairways. And there's been numerous complaints about the eyesores. A board-on-board fence, privacy fence, is what's been proposed to serve 2 different functions. First, it would hide the operations, equipment, and materials, improve property values. Second, it would reduce or potentially eliminate unauthorized pedestrian access to the maintenance yard because things do disappear from there from time to time. The cost estimate for this is somewhere between $13,500 and $20,000. Next slide. This project was also proposed last year by the M&E committee. The 9.9 area is where the LOA members and residents can bring yard refuse, which cannot be accepted by the Orange County disposal site at Shoesmith. The association periodically collects and disposes of refuse outside of LOA. There are 6-member owner lots along this 9.9 drive, which border on the 9.9 area. And each of these lots has a sight line into 9.9. More importantly, refuse from this area routinely blows into people's lots. So it's not just an eyesore, it actually adds work because people are constantly having to clean up what's blowing into their yards. So it's been proposed that as a good neighbor, LOA should consider erecting a barrier, either fixed or vegetation, to prevent things from blowing into the lots and to give them some more privacy. And what you see there are the 2 types of proposals. The lower one is what they call arborvitae. It's a large evergreen type of shrub that grows very fast. It can grow, 30 feet tall and very quickly. The other is a type of board-on-board fence that would offer another type of privacy. The current cost estimate for this is about $20,000. Next slide. This also was proposed last year by the M&E committee. I don't know if you recall, but from 2018 to 2019, there was an ad hoc fence committee that studied, they were appointed to evaluate safety and security issues of perimeter fencing on the Route 3 area. And you've seen that type of fencing, the metal fencing that has already been installed. It was recommended as a phased enhancement of exterior barriers along Route 3, and it's already been implemented. With the advent of lake villas after 2019, the subject came up that maybe we should also add some additional fencing along that border. It's been suggested that they add approximately 1,500 feet of additional perimeter fencing extending from the storage lot mail station along the southwest edge of the power line to the back of the 9.9 refuse disposal area. Previous discussions have indicated that the management of Lake Villas have no plans of their own to do this. So that kind of leaves it in our court. So we do need some sort of physical barrier to prevent uncontrolled pedestrian entry into the community and to afford a privacy barrier for the members and residents. The cost estimates depend on the type of fencing chosen. Currently, they're looking at some post and wire fencing installed, which is the same as what they use behind Flat Road Run Road. Next slide. This particular proposal was submitted by LOAS staff, and I've seen the proposal talked about online also. One of the problems we're having at our storage lot where we keep the boats and RVs is things are disappearing. There is a combination lock that people are sharing. Sometimes they share it with the boat contractors that come in and fix the boats. Sometimes they share it with neighbors. There's been reports of things missing. There's reports of vandalism. So what they have proposed is a continuation of a proposal submitted last year by LOAS staff to expand the number of proximity card readers and associated locks at various amenities, including the community center, boat, RV storage, pickleball, tennis courts, maintenance buildings, and other LOA buildings. Now, some of these have already been implemented, and they were waiting for the implementation of fiber links so that they can do this, because this is connected to the internet. Last year's proposal was approved by the board, and again, largely waiting on fiber link. The proposal is specific to access card readers at the RV storage lot and Hollyfield Park pickleball courts. Due to the various reports of theft and vandalism reported to boat and RV equipment in the storage, phase 2 has become more critical. One of the issues is members sharing the codes, and this would stop that type of access. You would have to have a specific card reader to access the lot. The current estimate is about 15 grand. So next slide.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. Next slide. At this point in time, I'm going to ask Jim Klein, my vice chair, who is also the planning committee's representative on the general manager's Lake Management Improvement Plan Working Group. So you'll get the next 3 of them there, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Let's start off with a project you may or may not have heard of, and it's Keaton's Lake is a primary importance. Helping Keaton's Lake is a primary importance of the board, of the Lake Management Implementation Group, and obviously the residents around Keaton's Lake. So anything we could do to help that is what we're trying to, promote, push, analyze completely. The M&E committee did a tremendous job presenting this NA&I to us, which required a lot of engineering, a lot of going out to the field and seeing exactly what kind of pumps were out there, where they would get water from. They made a revision to go out further into the lake to get cooler water. The project concept, or the thought of this, is we have an irrigation system for I'm going to look at Chris because he's Mr. Golf. We have an irrigation system for the golf course. What they're proposing, M&E, and what they did a lot of engineering study on, was to take water when it's acceptable, meaning when the lake has got enough water in it, which wasn't the last 3 months, and start to pump fresh water, cooler water, into Keaton's Lake, and therefore helping to bust up some of the harmful algae blooms that are. Is it the total answer? No, it's not the total answer. Does it help? Yes, it helps. So we're analyzing everything that we could do for this. The cost of this probably is about $25,000. Maybe if we go out into the lake a little bit deeper, it might be a few more thousand. and right now we're relying on one of our consultants' reports to see how much further we advance this. So I'm trying not to be, what was the term I used? Biased. I'm trying to not to be biased. So, okay. So, next slide, please. This one I'm going to be biased about because I am on its Lakes implementation committee. And part of it is getting more dredging done. We have to dredge more of Keaton's Lake. You lower the water level and all of a sudden the algae blooms won't be as strong. So what are we going to do with the spoils? Where are we going to put it? You know what it takes to cart spoils off a site? Well, when I was in construction in DC, you were probably paying about $45 a yard, and it depends if it's clean or not clean. So we have a spot at 9.9. It's up in the back where you're not supposed to go. It says employees only, and we're supposed to dump our leaves out in front, not go down that road. Well, so the M&E committee has gone down that road, and they've analyzed the area, and they've done a lot of research on what it would take to put in new drying pits. And basically what happens is, used to be Roy, now it's Eddie. He's out there on a dredge. He fills up his barge. He brings the barge to the dock. He unloads the barge, puts it in a dump truck, brings it over to 9.9, dumps it, and it has to stay there for about 4 weeks minimum, depends on the rain and everything else, to dry out. Well, we run out of space there. And what we want to do is actually increase it. There's a lot of permits that are required for it. As I said, there was a lot of engineering done by M&E, and my hat goes off to them for proposing this. Trying and being unbiased. Okay. Next slide, please. Well, anybody that's walked the dam knows that this slide doesn't do justice to the view that you have in here. The only thing you're looking down for is where the goose go. So, the top of the dam, I walked it Sunday, looks almost exactly like this, but then you're looking out at the lake, it's a gorgeous view. It's 1,400 feet from approximately the parking lot all the way down to where the spillway starts. So this proposal was by M&E and staff, I believe, is for paving the top of that dam and then paving the walkway that goes from the top of the dam down to meets the other walkway that goes around Lakeview Parkway and then also goes up to where the large marina is. So it would supposedly increase the longevity of the dam. It obviously would eliminate a lot of the erosion that you see as you drive down Lakeview Parkway. You know, all of a sudden you see the clay showing through the grass. So every year we have to have maintenance go up there and start to either reroute it so we can grow something or fill in some of the ruts. So the total cost for this right now is what we're looking at. If it was done potentially in asphalt or some other materials, about $95,000.
All right, thank you, Jim. Next slide, please, Alex. And, just to let you know, this is the last slide of the NA&I projects. And, for this one, I turn the mic over to Terry Vickery.
So he took away my thunder because I was going to say last but not least. In any case, this is about the clubhouse, and the recommendation is for a deck shade structure. The clubhouse committee has been recommending something similar to this probably since about 2016. But we last year hired consultants to tell us what to do about the clubhouse. And one of the things that they strongly recommended is that we have some type of shade structure outside. What they recommended were, what are they called? Sails, thank you. But when we asked an engineer about that, we were told that given the way our building is built, that it would be very difficult and very costly to install sails that would not destroy the building. So this is what's recommended instead. So it's kind of like a big metal posts with a structure on top that can be adjusted so it can be open or closed. The benefit of that is when it's not too sunny, or not raining. You can open it up and let the fresh air in, but this works against both sun and rain. So it's permanent and it's powered. And like I said, it helps to protect against sun and rain. It would allow us to extend the use of our clubhouse deck on days that are too hot to be out there now. I was not out there on the 4th of July, but I heard that it was pretty unbearable. And also it would allow people to be outside during a light rain like today. It would increase revenue at the clubhouse, which we all know is a priority for our current board, is to improve our food and beverage amenities. And it would increase the amount of space that we could have people use at the clubhouse. The cost, as you can see, is very high, 125,000 to 310,000. It goes up every year. So if we don't do it this year, it'll be even more next year. The range in price is for the amount of the deck that you cover. So what is recommended is that we consider starting at the smaller amount, 125,000. That would cover approximately 1/3 of the clubhouse deck. And also one other thing, I know people talk about the sun net hits off as it's setting, hits off the lake and bounces, and that can be very difficult. This would not fix that problem, okay? However, that problem lasts for maybe half an hour. This would hopefully fix problems that last for longer than that. Also, if this structure works well, we could potentially hang something from it that we could pull up and down that would help with the reflection. So last but not least.
All right, thank you, Terry. Next slide, please. Okay, what happens next? The planning committee, we evaluate each of these forms that people have, filled out, for completeness, relevance. We have, 7 criteria that we rate from 1 to 5 that are listed in our in our policy and procedure. Then we'll put together and and what that rating will yield is a prioritization of these projects. And then we'll make our recommendation to the board as far as what projects we recommend to be, approved and put into the 5-year plan, which ones we think should be deferred and which ones just didn't quite make the cut and should be resubmitted. That report will be given to the board at their meeting on the 16th of October. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, here's the slide you've been waiting for. This is the time for questions on NA&I. I would ask that you please come, to the podium and use the mic so that the people on Zoom can hear your question and any answers. So do we have any questions?
Don't be shy.
Anything on Zoom?
Yes, sir. Good evening, David Stevens.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm thinking about the budget that goes into this. So I've got 2 questions. The one is are the numbers that are provided for this effort, is that something that's provided to all of the members so we can see, what the budget is looking at the 5-year plan? Over.
It's the intent of the board, from what I understand, is to, as part of the budget guidance for this coming budget year, is to take the projects that the planning committee fully approve and put them into the draft budget and then start working from there. So the numbers are available as part of this presentation. You've got the numbers that we have received. Hopefully that if that answers your question.
Yes, sir. It does. Thank you. One of my second question is that one of actually the very first recommendation was regarding the signal light, and I understood some of the challenges associated with that. The property across the street, would it be possible? So in Japan, it's a very common practice to put a very large, maybe 24-inch in diameter convex mirror that allows you to see further down the road where you have a blind spot. And so I just wanted to offer that idea. Maybe it's an interim solution while you continue to work toward the signal light, or maybe it actually provides sufficient visibility to help my neighbors get out of the neighborhood safely there on Flat Run Road. Thank you again for the opportunity. That's all I had.
All right. Thank you, sir. And we'll, make your recommendation, known to the folks that you'll be then carrying the ball to VDOT. So that would be a much, I think, less costly solution. We have a question in here.
Yes, my name is Mary Damone, Section 7, Lot 352. I'm looking at page 13 of your folder. Page 13, the fencing for the I guess it's for around the golf course.
Oh, the maintenance yard.
Yeah.
Okay.
We live on Stratford Circle, and when you come into the back gate, the very first entrance to Stratford Circle, you have that area where they have the gravel dump, basically. Is there any way to expand this to make a fence type of area for that area? It's really very ugly.
Okay. There was a NANI that was submitted last year. I know that, was under consideration.
It was
And one of the things that we would recommend in our recommendations that can go back to the board is that, for any of the fencing that is that actually is, put into the 5-year plan, that we consider bundling these, fencing projects, so that we can get a bigger bang for our money. And we understand the problem there at Stratford Court.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Denise Balzano, lot 61, section 8. And I'm very impressed, first of all, with all the work you all have done. It's very extensive. And I guess I'm just plugging into this process. We are not here full time. So I drove down from Northern Virginia to come to this rather than be on Zoom. How does one propose such a thing? When does that happen? Was that announced in the
Okay.
late currents?
That's-
Is that how that works?
That's a good question. Long about the May timeframe, I think, is when I put my first article into the lake currents, and was assisted by the communications department, and including in the email blasts that go out. It says, please, submit your suggestions for, capital projects, things that improve the community and what have you. And in that was the instructions on the where you can find the form, this lovely form right here that gets that to fill out. It's in the forms section on the LOA website, and basically you fill that out and then submit it to there's a email address which comes to me at least for the next few months. Then that gets put into the hopper for consideration for the next go around of the budget. The cutoff is the 1st of August is when we ask that all submissions be made. So that gives us time to go through them and working with the staff as they're starting to put together some of their getting ready for the budget season.
Yes, and I can vouch for the fact that you answer your emails.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting it. So there are some things here that made me wonder, has somebody looked at other options? For instance, the water for Keaton's Lake. We're lakefront owners, so we're very lucky to feel like we are on the water, and I'm sure people at Keaton's Lake feel that way too. Are there other options than bringing water from Domain liked? I mean, or is that part of the
That's part of
research
the
you did?
overall cure, hopefully, is basically dredging, chemical treatments. How do you improve the water, the depth? The more depth we have at Keaton's Lake, the less potential for the algae blooms. The plant life can grow in there a little bit more. So it's, and also one of the big things is the streams that feed Keaton's. A lot of them are collapsed. You know, it's 50 years since this community's been built, and a lot of the streams that go into Keaton's have collapsed. So part of what I'll present in about 3 more minutes will be the plan that we have to for stormwater management.
And so then when you're doing something like covering the clubhouse deck, which I can understand, or maybe the golf simulator, has somebody done some research on how many more people would come and do that? Do you have to be a Lake of the Woods member to
We,
use the simulator? Or are you thinking about having it from the outside? I mean, I think you can project a return on investment, but do we really know?
we've, contacted other other golf courses that have put in simulators, the Gauntlet in particular. In the forum itself, there's a place for, alternatives. And that's why in a couple of the slides we put together, you see a range of numbers. The clubhouse, deck shade structure is one. It could be this to this, and that's looking into the alternatives that are presented. And in some cases, when we make a recommendation back to the board, we'll say approve with conditions, and the condition is, in the case of the deck structure, start small and see how well it does.
So when you said a third, did you mean of the whole deck from the bar area around to the main dining room? That whole 1/3 of all of that?
Yes, 1/3 of
So
the entire
mainly
piece.
The area outside the,
Yeah, either outside the bar or outside what they call the grill room.
yeah,
Right. But
that would be about a third.
that would be a thing.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions? Up, please.
And my name is Nicole Pappas. I'm Section 3, Lot 130. And thank you, Mary. You reminded me that sometimes there are things that didn't get on here. And when we were talking about the shades protector, the sun protector in the fitness center, one of the things that we lost in the clubhouse renovation were shades. And if we can get as you say, a better bang for our buck, to include something for the clubhouse as well, because it's almost impossible to have any kind of a presentation in that room with a projector, because you can't turn the lights down far enough to even see anything. And I know many clubs use that for that. So I'm just asking,
Okay.
for more, right?
Well, let me see. I'll put in a plug for the general manager here, because the general manager and Chaz Kilby, the food and beverage director, made a pitch to the board, for some supplemental money, which did include shades for the back main room, so that presentations can be made. Yes, sir.
I'm her husband,
Mike, I recognize.
Michael Balzano, 61 Section 8-9, and with all we have 3 places here. We've been here for 45 years. And I guess my question really, and it's an honest question, I want to say, all of you should be congratulated for what you're doing. I couldn't do what you're doing. You volunteer your time. I mean, I'm busy doing other things, but you guys are really good. The question that I have is, would you make an estimate as to when the annual fee would go over 3,000? No, but I'm not here. We were here when it was just done, it was $100, then it was $200. Then there were people on the board said, if we can only get to 1,000, we got to 1,000. Then if we can only get to 1,500, well, you know what? There are a lot of people who are coming to the lake now who are 65, 70 years old. I have 2 friends just arrived. They don't own a boat. They don't play golf.
They very seldom meet at the clubhouse, and they couldn't ride a horse if their life depended on it. But you see, they're invested in this place. I guess my question, and I will ask this to the board in a slightly different manner, okay? But is anybody watching that?
Well, there's on December the 2nd and then 4th and 5th are the budget hearings where that are co-hosted by the Finance Committee and the Planning Committee, where we go through the proposed budget, for the upcoming year that's presented by the Operations Center. So we get to pick at those plus, the proposed 5-year capital plan at that time. So, if you want to see how the sausage is made, for the budget, that's the time to come and sit in.
Well, again, I'm not asking for myself. You could make it 5,000 as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers a lot of other people, and eventually it'll cave. I mean, but I'm just curious, is anybody watching for that iceberg? Because we're going to hit it at some point, Anyway,
My belief is yes. I feel your pain. I've been here for 26 years and have watched the same thing.
good, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Mr. Ho. Yes, sir.
One question.
Bob Ho, Section 4, Lot 142. I have a question, clarification on your refinement of projects. Many of these projects will have operational and maintenance costs every year. Is part of your evaluation include what operational and maintenance costs would be proposed for each of these projects?
Well, good question. And based on some of the new budget guidance that's coming out of the board up to this point, the planning committee, it would really look at all of the various requests, based on does it make good business sense as far as, the business justification and according to our criteria. And we didn't pay a lot of attention to cost. Now with the board's new guidance, going forward, we're going to have to and start taking a look at the O&M tail that goes along with some of these projects as well. So not now, but the process is changing to include that.
And there is an operational cost element in the golf simulator.
Any other questions? I think this is a new record for the town hall.
So
This-
I kind of have the same question that Bob had a little bit, but back on the software for the ECC, I'm on the ECC committee and I know the reason for it. And I think it's a valid reason, but I don't understand why it's a capital improvement.
You you have a question similar to ours that when our recommendation goes back to the board, one of the things that we will point out is because this is a rental, basically a license, we're not necessarily purchasing it. We still have we struggle with that if it's
And
a
I don't-
true
and I-
capital cost.
And I don't also think that it's $22,000 a year. I think it's $22,000 initially, and then there's probably a fee for that license.
I guess the way it was presented in the write-up was it's so much per managed lot, and we have 4,260 lots that will get managed, and the cost basis was based on that.
And my next question is on the front gate. Why are we separating the actual landscaping from the actual contract that we're doing?
Okay, good question. In the write-up, for the landscaping, it was pointed out that, the budget for landscaping as part of the improvement of the front gate, and we'll talk about that in the R&R section here in a little bit, was only a $5,000 budget.
Okay, and then my final question is, you want to put up fences around these areas that don't look pretty, but you can't have fences around your yard.
Good question. That
Okay.
goes, that I'm afraid, I think goes with the covenants, and I'm not going to try and fight that battle.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. with that, let's move on to the next section. Next slide, please there, Alex. And I'm going to turn the mic back over to my good friend and partner in crime here, Jim Klein, to talk about the lakes and stormwater management projects.
Okay, I'm going to say the same thing I said last year. Don't shoot the messenger, because to tell you the truth, what we've talked about now, up till now, is actually small compared to what is going to be required for stormwater management and lakes management. Our infrastructure is over 50 years old. A lot of it is deteriorated. A lot of our streams that feed the lake, our lakes are mostly fed by runoff. Comes in off a flat run and runoff. But most of these streams that go through people's backyards or through some of the lake-owned property are deteriorated. That silt winds up in the lake. And then we know what happens with Keaton's Lake with the amount of silt that's been going in there. So what I'm going to present is a stormwater management budget that we've been talking about for about 3 years. And it's sort of morphed into the Lakes Management Implementation Program. So it's not just stormwater management anymore. We all saw what happened at the 10th Fairway for the major retention pond we put up there. And the people that were down on the lower elevation of the 10th Fairway, they were getting flooded out all the time. The woman complained when we were doing the presentation on the how the new fairway would go, that basically every time she put landscaping in, basically just washed down the block. It was just constantly. Some of it was dangerous. Some of it, you know, you saw a propane tank rip off somebody's house. You wouldn't want to see that going floating down the river. So anyhow, this is something we have to do. Okay, next slide, please. So as I said, lakes, stormwater management, lakes implementation is sort of getting combined a little bit, and I'm on the committee, and I haven't quite found the dividing point yet. So it's what we're working on is a 10-year plan that it's what I call a living document. So we have a budget. Don't go to the next slide yet, but we have a budget for 10 years. But it's a living document. We will analyze what's in that budget every year. We present it to the board and they have to vote on spending for that year. So it's a 10-year plan, but every year it gets modified. There are things that are going to see on the next slide that we're in the process of talking about. Or we want to do it, or we want to do something a little bit different, or maybe part of it and maybe part of something else. So as I said, we're going to present what we have today, but this document does change. Next slide, please. No matter how big I made it, you're going to see at the end of 10 years, you're talking $7 million. So this year, we do have on the 2024, this is already funded money. And Patrick Henry Marina Drainage Improvement Project, which has been on the board probably for 3 years. Part of the problem here is getting homeowners to agree to people working in their backyard. Our bylaws were not set up for this. So part of the delay in this project is getting the people around the project to agree to some of the construction, to some of the design. So this project has been in permitting and design for at least 3 years, and it's been funded. This project also has an open house tomorrow. If you want to find out more about it, it's over at the Lions Pavilion at Hollyfield Park. The contractor will be there, our management people will be there, and they'll explain exactly what we're doing as far as digging a retention pond, as far as new piping, the prep work that has to go into this. It is a major project, and it's probably the biggest one that we have in here. Harpers Ferry Mail Station 4-bay, actually, with the redesign of Patrick Henry, some of that doesn't have to be done, and some of that money may go over to fixing the gabions in Flat Run. Westover Stream Stabilization. Again, that's in a lot of people's backyard. but all that silt is dumping into Keaton's Lake. So yeah, we want to go in and dredge. We're going to get the dredging out. Maybe we'll put some chemicals and stop the harmful algae blooms. But we also have to stop the silt from coming in. So I call it like, we got to pay for 50 years worth of sins by dredging, and we got to stop the next 50 years by fixing these streams. Westover stabilization is a long project. It's going to take a lot of permits. By the time we actually get approval to do it, we may do the two at the same time. So we originally divided it in half. 6 fairway bioretention basin. Right now, it's a sort of a conceptual. We're in the process of getting a little bit of funding to do a little bit more engineering on it. And then you got to sell it to the golf committee, you know, to make sure that we don't interfere with the golf play, because they lost the 10th fairway for a year and they don't want to do that again. So all these projects do require a lot of coordination with the stakeholders that they're impacting. Ditch restoration, it's sort of an ongoing thing that you've all seen the ditches and the culverts that were replaced on Lakeview Parkway, you know, because they were pretty much collapsed. Water was flowing all over the place. So that's where some of that money went. Culvert replacements, it's an ongoing process. Roads crew gets every year, they pick the top group that they're going to tear up the highway and let you know they're closing the road and they're going to replace that culvert. It's rotting away and it's either going to collapse or there's plenty of silt going through it from the bottom. Golf course culvert retention. This year, they did a great job of coordinating every culvert that had to be replaced, and then even some of the drainage for the future before they paved 3 cart paths. So that's what's going on for this coming fiscal year. We have planned further out, as you can see on this chart, and every year it will be voted on, and it will also be analyzed by the committee. Committee consists of probably about 4 or 5 people from various committees, meaning the M&E committee, the Lakes Committee, Planning Committee, probably leaving out somebody. There are a few board members on this committee and management people from this committee. So everybody's got a stakeholder involved. You can always contact them and say, you know, I don't think you should be doing this, or maybe do something else. Next slide, please. I think I covered most of this. We have a 10-year plan. Now a lot of this is covered in the R&R budget. I was told today that the new group doing our R&R budget is basically incorporating this into what's going to happen in our budget for the next 4 or 5 years. And some of it is actually in the operations budget. So as I said before, some of this down below, when we talk about culvert replacements, that's already in your operations budget and the R&R. So it's not capital improvements. It's sort of listed separately, but some of it's capital improvement and some of it's maintenance and R&R. Next slide, please. Okay, we're open for questions.
Questions on stormwater or lakes management projects? Okay, up, sure, go right ahead.
Jim Corson's, section 6, lot 320. With regard to the 6th fairway, it would be nice to have an idea of what they even want to do there. Because as a member of the golf committee, we are clueless as to what is even going to be proposed. And we had very little input, in my opinion, on what happened on the 10th fairway. And if some of us hadn't spoken up, it would have cost a lot more money, because they had originally planned to move the green 100 yards forward, which would have been much more costly than leaving the green where it was and replacing it. So as a member of the golf committee, we would like to know early on rather than late on what is going to be done. And we certainly do not want to lose the hole for a year like we did the 10th hole.
I was at that town hall meeting with the 10th Fairway, and there were some major input from all the committees on that and the homeowners, redesigned that. And obviously, we didn't want a par three, that long par four turned into a par three. So I've talked to management, and they are in the process of getting some conceptual design, so we can start to not just talk to the golf group, but to also talk to the homeowners around the property.
Sure. Go ahead there, Tom.
Newbig, Section 6, Lot 88. There was a recent article talking about the lack of vegetation in the main lake, and I don't know if that issue falls under operations or capital or part of the.
That's a good question. It's, we talked about that this afternoon after the M&E meeting, and Jack promised he wasn't going to ask me any questions, so I could have turned the mic over to him, but we are talking about the vegetation and the amount of carp that are eating the vegetation and trying to find the balance between that. It's not in the lake implementation plan yet, but part of the discussion today was, okay, how do we put all the soft costs into that lake implementation plan also? Because some of it is operational and some of it's capital. So it is on the radar.
Any other questions? Let me see, we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Do we need to take a break, or do we want to push through and get this last section out of the way? All right, everybody says, keep going. All right, then. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, we're going to talk about the repair and replacement, the major projects over $100,000. Next slide, please, ma'am. Basically, R&R does have its own, reserve fund as well. But unlike some of the other ones, this is actually required by Virginia law, that the Property Owners Association Act does require that money be set aside for, repair and replacement of the assets and amenities, for the property owners or homeowners in this case, and requires a full reserve study done. What this reserve study basically is a consultant company will come in, look at all of the assets that are categorized. I believe we have somewhere around 900 on our list. We'll gauge what the remaining useful life is, what the replacement cost is. Then we'll chart that out. And I have a chart here in just a second to show, how, what that kind of looks like in order to come up with what should be the contribution to reserves in order to maintain this reserve. We will say that, as I said, it is a separate account. Management, works, very hard so that there's no automatic replacement. And things based on either gets used up quicker, or in some cases it lasts longer than expected. There are some changes, which is why we do our reserve study, a full study every 3 years instead of the required 5. And then every year we have kind of a spreadsheet update, to just update the numbers before the next full study is done. Most of the repair and replacement are not discretionary and are included in the annual budget. You'll find all of this in the 5-year capital plan. After you go through, page 1 and page 2 of the NA projects, the next 85 pages are all of the R&R projects that are lined out for the next 5 years. We did want to make a point here, is that you as members, you have already paid for these repairs that, that comes out of our assessment that gets put into this reserve fund. And this year I calculated that probably $529 of your assessment, goes, to that contribution of, to reserves for the R&R projects. Next slide, please, ma'am. Okay, this slide actually came from the reserve study that was done 2 years ago, but it still, makes the point that the height of each of those bars is for a particular year that has, the assets that have the end of their useful life within that year and what the replacement costs are. If you notice, there are some years that are taller than other years, is based on, again, the useful life. But the point here is that we look over 40 years to get an average, and that red line gives the average of what that contribution should be, and that's how it is basically figured. So, and we'll get another study. We have a new reserve study consultant. It used to be Miller Dotson, so they always heard about the Miller Dotson report. Well, now it's going to be the DMA reserves report that is currently being prepared for us. What else do I want to say about that? I think that's all I need to say about that one. Next slide, please. All righty. These are the projects for the next 2 years that are in the R&R, the major ones. This is old data. This comes from last year's report, since I've not seen the new one just yet. But did want to just make a point that, from year to year, like we have playground equipment, for Hollyfield, and then in 26, the playground equipment for Keaton's. Again, these is going to be looked at to see what is the wear and tear, and whether that could be pushed out or not. Here's where you'll find your tar and chipping, for the various sections. Coming up in 2025, sections 8 and 9 or will start getting some of the tar and chipping on the roads. Usually we do about 3 of the golf cart trails, 3 holes worth, every year. So that's the the project that you'll see there, and this kind of recurs throughout the the years. It looks a little bit of the same until we get to the next slide. 2027 is going to be a big year. If you look back, even on the bar chart, 2027 is a big one. Reason is this is when the pickleball courts are scheduled to be rebuilt, for $259,000. The golf maintenance barn is up for a rebuild for $136,000. And there, the Lakeview, from Route 3 to Lakeview Parkway resurface, for a little over $200,000, comes up. Now we're going to see, that project and that number here again in just a little bit. Then 2028 goes down a little bit. Again, not so many things come to end of life. Next slide, please. Okay, we do aggregate repair and replacement projects. Perhaps you remember the clubhouse refresh. That had a fairly large bill, but probably about 90–95% of that money was already paid for and was sitting in the reserve account, that we had saved all that money instead of buying a little bit of furniture in one year, a little bit of furniture in the next year that was scheduled. We held on to it so that we could do it all at once and hopefully get a quantity discount, like on things for the furniture and carpet and flooring and what have you. The same thing is going to happen here with the front gate improvement that's going to be done, to help improve the traffic coming through. Right now, the plan is this is going to be internally funded, where we've aggregated several of the reserve and replacement projects to start the work in 1 year. Right now, we've pulled together almost $300,000, to at least begin the work, and then we're going to borrow from ourselves the remaining funds from the R&R reserve and from the NANI reserve, to the tune of about $455,000 over the next couple of years as it needs to be paid out. And then we'll need to repay that money. The total estimated cost last I saw was approximately $751,000 for the front gate. Next slide, please, ma'am. Another project that we're aggregating the R&R funds. If you look through the charts, you won't see anything about mail stations. Well, each mail station is under $100,000 to fix, but when you pull all 12 mail stations together, you end up with needing about just shy of $700,000. We've been saving up this money so that right now the mail stations, we're getting complaints from the U.S. Postal Service that these are in, poor repair. They're just getting harder and harder to, open them to get in the mail and get them locked back up. And so they are requesting that we replace those. We've been saving up this money over several years, and we will look to get out a competitive bid to replace the guts of these mail stations. This is not the structures, not the boxes themselves, but the mechanics that make each individual box that the Postal Service has to open, put in the packages, put in the mail, and lock back up. And the Postal Service does manage all of the keys and key replacement and lock replacements, for us. So this is an agreement with them. All righty. Next slide, please, ma'am. How, I think we've touched on this already, how these get refined is that the cost centers are constantly out there looking to see what sort of shape their equipment is. Can we get another year or 2 or 3 or how many ever out of it? And this gets updated in the reserve study. The current reserve study was due in August. I think it was a little bit later than that. And as part of the budget process, this is first looked at by the finance director, then the GM when he prepares for the December budget hearings that I mentioned earlier, and that we go through with the finance and planning committee. And then finally, the board adjusted it as well before approving, the next budget. Next slide, please, ma'am. Any questions on proposed R&R projects? Yes, ma'am.
Balzano again. When you show on the slide on page 22, things like tar and chip or golf cart path resurface, you show the same amount in 25 as you do in 27 to 28. Shouldn't you add something for inflation?
Good question. I think that might be part of the new reserve study to make some inflation adjusted numbers. Again, this is old data from last year, and we probably should have had at least some inflation adjustment. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, next slide, please, ma'am. We're almost done. All right, what happens? Next steps. Between now and the 6th of October, we'll look to get any feedback from you all on these projects. That'll get rolled into my report that goes to the board on the 16th of October. As for the recommendations, on the various capital projects. We have the joint session of the Finance and Planning Committee to reviews the GM's proposed budget, that first week in December. Then in January, after much refinement, the GM will make a presentation in a town hall of the proposed budget to the entire membership. In February, the board, after much cussing and discussing, will put it all, we'll set it up and to be approved. And after approval in March, we, the planning committee, will then notify all of the submitters of NANI requests, what happened to their request and what their next step should be. And then May 1st, we start the new fiscal year. Next slide, please, ma'am. Member feedback. Again, part of this is try to inform you on some of the planning that's going in, but also if there's something that you feel passionate about or other comments that, you feel might need to go to the board and included in my report and my recommendations to the board, I look forward to hearing from you. It's just, between now and the 6th of October is when I would need to get those to include it in a report. At this point, are there any other questions, any other comments? If not, we're done, and this town hall is adjourned. Thank you very much for everything.
Thanks, Alan.